Welcome back, class. Now we're going to talk about processing data in MATLAB after you've marked and exported data from Qualysys to .mat files. The first thing you're going to want to do is open up the MATLAB interface and then navigate to the folder that contains your files. I can see the current folder shown here on the left, and I'm going to go to the lesson page for today, which was where I saved the files for today's lesson. You can see here, I can see all the files in the current folder. So I have the actual Qualysys files and the MATLAB exports. Now if I want to, I can directly open the MATLAB exports inside MATLAB by dragging them into the workspace. And you can see it creates a variable called p01 underscore walk 0001, and that is a data type of a structure, and it's a 1-by-1 structure. A structure is a file type in MATLAB that contains several other variables. So inside this, I have a number of values that are 1-by-1 matrices, a timestamp, which is a character array, a file, which is also a character array, but it's small enough that it can be shown here, which gives the original location of the Qualysys file that this was exported from, in this case, the walk001.qtm file, as well as a list of events, trajectories, rigid bodies, analog data, and force plate data. Now the marker data is listed inside trajectories, and we have labeled, unidentified, and discarded trajectories. And unidentified, you notice I have nothing here because when I exported this data, I had the exclude unidentified trajectories selected. I have labeled, which is actually where all of my useful data is, and in this I have a count of 37 markers. I have a list of labels, one for each marker, and then I have a 37 by 4 by 540 array. Now the labels are the names for all of our markers in sequential order. So I have the right anterior head, right posterior head, yada yada yada. This order is determined by the AIM model or the order of markers identified inside Qualysys. The order doesn't really matter, but it is tied up to the variables inside the data array. Inside data, the first value here, where we're looking at all, 1, this is X, Y, and Z position data for all of my 37 markers. And then I go to 2, that's the second frame, the third frame, the fourth frame, the fifth frame, the sixth frame, all the way down to the last frame of data, which is, in this case, I think 540 or something like that. I'll try and find it real quick. Yeah, 540. Now, this way of formatting data is not super useful because if I want to address an individual marker, I have to specify the marker index and the range, the values that I want. So I have to transpose this 3-dimensional array into a 2-dimensional array before I can do any useful functions. So what I've done is I've actually created a file, which is a script in MATLAB, which automatically transforms the format of the data into what I consider to be a more useful description. So rather than loading the files directly, I'm going to use this autoFileLoad function to load the files for me. And I'll post a more detailed video on how this works. But for now, all you really need to know that it's going to go through, it's going to get the current directory. So it's very important that autoFileLoad be in the same directory as whatever files you're trying to load from the exported .mat files from Qualysys into a more manageable format. It's going to get all the names. It's going to make an array of those names, load the data from each file sequentially, and then save that data based off of the name of the labels from the trajectory data, and then create a new variable in a structure called data with the file name of the current file with dependent variables that are a matrix of each individual data point. And then it'll go through and do the same thing for force plate data, moment data, and center pressure data, and can be expanded to include analog data. This is just an example. If you don't have any analog data inside your file, you're going to want to comment this line out. So since this data was recorded without analog data, I can comment this by putting a %, and I'll just ignore that line of code. Once I've got that done, if I run the autoFileLoad, we can see that my workspace has updated and I have a few new variables that have been defined. The primary source of actual information in this is going to be the data structure. So similar to the structure we were just looking at, The data structure contains a number of variables, in this case 3 structures, one for each file of data that was loaded from the previous run of autoFileLoad. Then each file, rather than having the trajectories, we actually have a list of all of the markers, and each of those markers is a n by 3 array, where the n is the number of frames and the columns are the x, y, and z position data. So this is what I consider to be a useful data set, because if I want to look at one specific marker, all I have to do is click on the marker that I'm interested in, and I can do whatever I want with it. I can plot it, I can use it for calculations, and I don't have to parse out each individual file every time I want to look at one piece of data. So I think that's enough for this video. We'll look at how do we actually start processing and doing calculations with its data after running it through autoFileLoad in the next video. Thanks for watching.